Hi there, fourth graders. I'm so excited to share a very silly book with you today. You have received this book in your box, and it's called Louise Trapeze Did Not Lose the Juggling Chickens. And then there's a little star by the word not, and it says probably. So Louise Trapeze probably did not lose the juggling chickens. And we can tell a lot about this book from the cover. Let's look at it. This must be Louise Trapeze, right? And those are the juggling chickens. I don't think I could juggle anything, especially not chickens. Well, guess what? Louise lives with her family, and they work for a traveling circus. And she really does get to do the flying trapeze. That's where her name comes from. And this is a silly book with lots of silly adventures and wonderful silly pictures. And I'm very excited to share the first few chapters with you, and we get to find out about Louise Trapeze. This is number 2 in the series, but it's okay if you haven't read number 1. I haven't read number 1 yet either, and I just jumped right in. This book is by Micol Ostow, and it's illustrated by Bridget Barriger. Let's see. Look, all of the words are in purple, which makes it a little more fun to read, don't you think? There's 13 chapters in this book. We'll read the first few and see what happens. Oh, there's a wonderful picture of the circus. I don't know if any of you have been to a circus. I haven't been in a very long time. Look, there's an elephant. There's a ball toss. There's where you buy your tickets. And there's the big tent. That's where all of the events happen. Chapter number 1 is called Baby-ish Sitting. Because Louise is 7, she has to be babysat when her parents go out, but she's not a baby, so she doesn't like to call it babysitting. Flip, flop, zip. Petrova the human pretzel rolled across the floor of the easy trapeze tent. She had bent completely backward, grabbing her ankles so her body made a big, round wheel. Then she just started rolling away. She rolled all the way around so she was right side up again, then let go of her ankles and, boing, sprang back up to her feet like a regular standing up person. And there's Petrova doing the human wheel. And there's Louise Trapeze and her friend. And that's how you do the wheel, she said. She smiled. It's all in the back. She did another bend to show what she meant. I don't know, my BFF Stella D saxophone said. Her face was very doubtish. Some of it looked like it was in the ankles, and the hands, and the front, I added. The wheel was Petrova's newest contortion for our circus performance. And one thing I like about this book is when there's a big word like contortion, it tells you what it means. Look. Contortion equals a grown-up word for an extremely bendy trick. Petrova, Stella, and I are all members of the Sweet Potato Traveling Circus Troupe. Petrova is our human pretzel. Stella and her parents have an acrobatics act that includes a real live elephant named Clementine. And my family is Mama, Daddy, and me, Louise Trapeze. Together we're the Easy Trapezes. Can you even? Fact. Flying on the trapeze is my most favorite of all the circus acts. Flying like a circus superhero. Look at her go. That would be pretty fun, wouldn't it? Being in a traveling circus means lots of fun, exciting, adventurous times in lots of different places. This month, the Sweet Potatoes were performing in Funky Town. Funky Town is a special name that Stella and I made up. We like to be unique. We have lots of secret, just for us, words and names for things. And tonight, Mama and Daddy were having their own fun adventures with Max Saxophone and Ms. Minnie D, also known as Stella's parents. They all went out to a fancy grown-up dinner at a restaurant in town. That's why Petrova was babysitting us. Because even though we're both 7 years old now, We're still young enough for trouble, as Mama likes to say. Except I wish it wasn't called babysitting. The word baby is right in there. There should be a more grown-up name for it. Maybe Stella and I can come up with one. At least Petrova was giving us a sneak peek at her newest contortions while she watched us. That was exciting. Also, she was letting us help cook dinner, which is an extra grown-up thing to do. We were making a giant pot of spaghetti on the hot plate in our tent. Stella and I took turns stirring the noodles. Here's the noodles. Fact, stirring the noodles is one of the very most important jobs of cooking spaghetti. The pasta was boiling away, so I decided it was the perfect time to practice the wheel myself. It could even help improve my form on the trapeze. Practice makes perfect, Mama likes to say. Stand back, I said to Stella and Petrova. They each nodded and took one step away from me so I had more space. I'm going to try the wheel, I said. Here goes nothing. First, I limbered up with some stretches. That's the fancy way of saying I shook my muscles until they were warm and ready for twisting. Then I lay on my back on the ground, planted my hands next to my ears, and pushed up high, high, high until I was all curved up backward like a bridge, or better yet, like a rainbow. Rainbows are the prettiest. Look at her. I don't think I could try that, can you? My back's not that bendy. Go, Louise, Stella cheered. You've got it, Petrova called. It wasn't totally 100% a wheel, more like halfway there, but I was feeling very bendy. Hooray! If I could only bring my hands closer to my ankles, I'd be able to grab hold of them, just like Petrova. But then, as I inched my fingers along the ground, I felt something ticklish on my forehead, something furry. Geez, Louise, I called. Bump, thump, knock. Down I went. A face popped up right in front of mine, shiny brownish eyes blinking away. Shiny, brownish, ferrety eyes. Linus! Linus must be a ferret that lives with them. And now it's time for Chapter 2, Grown-Up Things to Do. There is one important thing to know about the Sweet Potato Circus. Fact number 1. I have gazillions of friends here. Almost everyone in our circus family is super ultra nice and fun to be around. Here's all of her circus friends. Well, I would think if you work for a traveling circus, you probably know how to have fun. But there is another, almost important thing to know. Fact number 2. I also have one major, big-time enemy. I wonder who that is. That enemy has a pet ferret. Ferret breath, Fernando, I called out. I jumped up and scratched the ticklish part of my forehead where Linus, Fernando's ferret, had rubbed. There he was, Fernando Werther, Ringmaster Riley's son. He thinks he's the boss of the worldwide universe because he's 9. So what? I almost stuck my tongue out at him before I remembered what an unmature thing that is to do. Linus the ferret sat on Fernando's shoulder. He peered at me with little ferret eyeballs. Linus is not actually a trained circus ferret, just a pet that Fernando taught to sneak up on enemies and tickle with his furry, whiskerous snout. You gooberhead, I said. I meant Fernando. It's not Linus's fault that his person teaches him mean tickling tricks. Sorry, Fernando said. He shrugged, but he didn't really look sorry at all. Linus was just curious about what you were doing all upside down like that. I was practicing the wheel, I grumbled, until you interrupted. What are you even doing here? My dad wanted me to drop off this schedule change for your parents, Fernando said. He held out a sheet of paper. And he wants to meet with them to go over some things tomorrow. He gave one to Petrova. You get one too. All the adults do. Well, our parents aren't here, I said. They went out to a fancy restaurant for dinner. I'll hang on to the schedules, Petrova said. She took the papers from Fernando. Oh, I see, Fernando said, smirking. So Petrova's babysitting you two tonight, huh? The way he said babysitting made it sound extra unmature. So what? Stella asked. Fernando shrugged. My dad is out tonight too, but he trusted me to hand out the schedules without him, and to watch Linus, and he didn't ask anyone to babysit me. He raised his eyebrows at me. I must be more responsible than you guys. Ooh, that made me angry. No way, I said in a shoutish voice. Face it, Louise, he said. I'm the one here with actual grown-up things to do. Taking care of a stinky ferret is not so special, I snapped. I pointed to where the spaghetti was bubbling on the hot plate. Look, Stella and I are cooking dinner. How grown-up is that? Petrova nodded. It's true, they're excellent helpers. Petrova was being nice, but I didn't want to be a helper. I wanted to be responsible, just like Fernando. Well, I'd show them. The pasta was boiling, so that meant it was ready, and I knew just what to do. There's Louise and Fernando fighting, and poor Linus the ferret caught in the middle. Let's read one more chapter to find out what happens next. Chapter 3, it's called Spaghetti Overboard. I pointed to the spaghetti pot again. Look, I said, the pasta is ready. I'll just drain it so we can eat. I was sure Fernando had never made a spaghetti dinner for his family all by himself. So there, I thought, running to the hot plate. Careful, Louise, the water is hot, Petrova called. She rushed after me. Don't touch. Steam was rising up from the bubbling pot. Actually, it looked like Petrova was right. That pot was too hot for me. I stepped away from the bubbling water in all its steaminess. Fernando snickered while Petrova drained the pasta into a strainer by herself. She put the strainer down on a stool by the hot plate. I wonder if it's going to spill. Guess you're not grown up enough for that job either, Fernando teased. I glared at him. I'm still the best helper of all times. You are, Petrova agreed. She gave Fernando a glance of her own. Then she turned back to me. In fact, Louise, why don't you help me pour the drained spaghetti into that bowl? She pointed out to the little folding dinner table with a large glass bowl on top. That sounded nice. I smiled at Petrova in agreeing with her way. But then I explained. I don't need to help you carry the spaghetti. I can do it all by myself. Before Petrova could say anything, I quick reached and picked up the strainer. I lifted it very dramatically so Fernando could completely see all my grown-upness. Except, it turned out the strainer was heavy. Super heavy. And steamy. Like hot steam burning in my eyes steamy. And I was 100% probably going to drop it. Ah! I grunted and clenched my fists tight around the strainer. But I still couldn't hold it up. Oh no. The strainer tilted, spilling spaghetti into a giant, slippery mountain at my feet. Spaghetti overboard, Fernando called. He snickered again. Petrova stood next to me. She looked sadly at the spaghetti mountain. Louise, she asked, why didn't you let me help you with that? She didn't sound angry, just confused. But actually, it wasn't confusing at all. It was very easy to understand. I didn't want Petrova to have to help me. Not with my circus tricks, not with cooking spaghetti, not with anything. I didn't want help from grown-ups. Maybe you felt like that before too, especially back when you were 7. I wanted to be more like Fernando, even if he was a big-time gooberhead. Can you even? Uh-oh. And there's their dinner all over the floor. I wonder what's going to happen in the rest of this story. I'll give you a sneak peek. Chapter 4 is called Elephant Ears. And a fun fact on the page is, fact, a good best friend does not remind you of your spaghetti mountain mistakes the next day. So this book is called Louise Trapeze Did Not Lose the Juggling Chickens. And I hope you get to enjoy the rest of it on your own. I enjoyed reading the first part to you today. Bye. Thanks for listening.